The forbidden fruit has already been plucked. Astrophysicist David Kipping attended a closed-door meeting at the Institute for Advanced Study, IS, in Princeton. He returned shaken and recorded an hour-long podcast. I listened to the whole thing so you wouldn't have to. In January, David Kipping arrived at Princeton to give an astronomy colloquium. In the hallway of the IS, he passed Ed Witten, one of the fathers of string theory. They simply passed each other, the way people do in hallways. Einstein, Oppenheimer, and Gödel once walked these same corridors. This isn't a place where people tolerate nonsense. Kipping is a professor at Columbia University, the creator of the Cool World's YouTube channel, 1.5 million subscribers, and has 10 years of experience in ML/AI. 8 years ago, he stopped developing models himself. He couldn't keep up with the literature and decided you are either full-time in AI or you use it as a tool. He chose the latter. His publications cover predicting the stability of circumbinary planets and detecting missing exoplanets. The next day, out of habit, he stopped by the IS and ended up in a closed meeting. It was organized by one of the senior astrophysics professors. The topic: AI's impact on science. There were about 30 people in the room, including the authors of cosmological simulations like ENSO, Illustris, and Gadget. Hydrodynamics with adaptive meshes, hundreds of thousands of lines of C and Fortran. Try to find a room with a higher average IQ. The capitulation. The presenter's first claim: AI codes an order of magnitude better than humans. Exactly that, total dominance, code quality is 10 times higher. Not a single person in the room raised a hand to object. Not one. Then came the numbers. The lead professor said AI is capable of performing about 90% of his intellectual work. Analytical thinking, mathematics, problem solving, everything a person at the IS has dedicated their life to. A specific example from Kipping: he was working on an integral in Mathematica, the primary tool for symbolic computation and a product of Stephen Wolfram. Mathematica failed. ChatGPT 5.2 succeeded. It showed the full chain of substitutions and transformations, which Mathematica fundamentally does not do. The result was verified numerically. It matched. When a person from the IS, remember, Gödel worked here, admits that a model performs 90% of his cognitive labor, no marketer could devise a more terrifying phrasing. An identity crisis voiced out loud in front of witnesses. The witnesses nodded and cheered. The keys to the apartment where the money is. The lead professor handed over full control of his digital life to agentic systems: email, files, servers, calendars. Root access in Unix terms. The primary tools were Claude and Cursor, with GPT on standby. About a third of the room raised their hands, us too. Someone asked about privacy. Have you even read the user agreement? The answer: I don't care. The advantage is so great that the loss of privacy is irrelevant. Next, ethics. Standard concerns were listed: jobs, energy consumption, climate. The presenter said, I don't care, the advantage is too great. Kipping describes the mood as to hell with ethics. The metaphor Kipping used to describe the situation: the forbidden fruit. AI companies are the serpent offering the apple. Once you take a bite, you can't get your innocence back. And if you don't take a bite, but a competing lab does, they will overtake you. An arms race with a moral dilemma inside. How trust grows. This part might be interesting for those working on alignment. The lead professor described his trajectory. He started with Cursor because Cursor shows a diff. But as trust grew, the transparency became annoying. It stopped feeling like safety and started feeling like friction. The professor switched to Claude. It doesn't show every diff. It just does it. A side effect: small scientific collaborations will start to disappear. Previously, a scientist brought in a co-author because they lacked a skill, a calculation, a verification, or code in an unfamiliar library. Now, the model fills that gap. Why call a colleague for a single calculation if Claude can do it in 10 minutes? Kipping himself writes scientific papers alone, which is unusual for his field. Traditionally, in physics and astrophysics, technically savvy people won. Now, the profile of a super scientist is managerial. the ability to break a problem into pieces suitable for a model. It's as if a conductor were told, the orchestra is now virtual, you can throw away the baton, learn to write MIDI. The GPS analogy is accurate and cruel. Before navigators, we kept a three-dimensional map of the area in our heads. GPS killed that skill. Behind the wheel, we now think about anything except the route. The atrophy of coding skills, mathematical thinking, and independent problem-solving, it's the same thing, just on a larger scale. The paper storm. 1 or 2 orders of magnitude more publications appear. Kipping fears a world where a superintelligence designs a fusion reactor, but humans are unable to understand how it works. A world where there is a result, but no understanding. Where everything around is magic. He says, I want to live in a comprehensible world. In science, we are now in the centaur phase. How long this will last is not an abstract question. What they don't talk about at conferences. There are things that weren't voiced at the meeting, but their shadow falls on every fact in the podcast. If models write 90% of the work and cross-check each other, who will notice a systematic error common to all of them? When everyone uses the same systems, the diversity of perspectives narrows. Suppose 3 models agree that an integral is solved a certain way. What if all 3 inherited the same approximation from their training data? A lone human reviewer with a pencil might catch it, but reviewers are buried in papers. They have no time, and they too are increasingly checking through models. Reproducibility is already a sore subject in science. If models generate science, and science enters the training data for the next generation of models, it's a closed loop. Whether it converges to something meaningful or diverges, we don't know. Model collapse as a concept is discussed widely, but almost nowhere in the specific context of scientific knowledge. YouTube audiences have a severe allergy to AI slop content entirely generated by a model. But the scientists at IS weren't worried about public reaction at all. From their perspective, AI-assisted science is absolutely legitimate. The gap between academic and public perception is already a chasm. The paper storm. 1 or 2 orders of magnitude more publications appear. Already, dozens of papers are posted daily to AR14 in every field. There is no one to read them. A scientist needs to internalize knowledge, not just get a summary. A summary doesn't provide that. The last question. What is the point of replacing all scientists with machines? Kipping fears a world where a superintelligence designs a fusion reactor, but humans are unable to understand how it works. A world where there is a result, but no understanding. Where everything around is magic. He says, I don't know if I want to live in a world where everything is just magic, fantasy. I want to live in a comprehensible world. If you plug in the numbers, a model costs $20 and does the work of a PhD student. This means science ceases to be a privilege of the elite. Values shift. It's not who can do science, but who is capable of separating the wheat from the chaff. A completely different skill, and perhaps the last one a human will be required to master. Kasparov lost to Deep Blue in '97. Then for 10 years, he promoted centaur chess. By 2015, the machine alone was stronger. In science, we are now in the centaur phase. Kipping says, what shocked him was that it was all said out loud, and the whole room was nodding. Thoughts he considered his private anxieties turned out to be a collective chorus. As for who will be reading in 5 years, ourselves or the systems, no one answered that question. Though perhaps they didn't need to. It was enough that it was asked.